Hey guys, welcome to Code Decode. In this video, we will be looking into some tricky interview questions for experienced Java developer. So let's get started. Please do like, share and subscribe to support us so that this video reaches to more of the people who are preparing for interviews like you.
Hey guys, recently we have launched a course covering an end-to-end full-stack application using Angular as front-end and microservices and Spring Boot as the back-end. Also, we have used Cloud to deploy this application, and we have used CICD, that is Jenkins and Argo CD, for continuous integration and continuous deployment. The technologies that we have used is RESTful web services, Spring Boot and microservices for backend, Angular for frontend. GitHub we have used for version control system. Also, to make the code unit testable, we have used JUnits. We have used Sonar for code quality checks. Also, for containerization, we have used Docker and Kubernetes. And to deploy this whole application, we have used AWS and multiple services from AWS. Also, we have used SQL as well as NoSQL, that is MongoDB and SQL. On AWS, since for the SQL we have RDS, we have used those services, and Jenkins and Argo CD for CI/CD pipeline. Also, this is an architecture of the application that we have created where the front end is Angular and the back end is microservices. We have used ALB load balancers, Ingress for routing and load balancing. And we have used SQL and MongoDB for SQL and NoSQL DB management with Eureka Server and all those microservices counterparts. Now, this is the CI/CD pipeline. This is the CI/CD flowchart for the application that we have created on local. So, this is something, a flow when you create an application in local, push it to GitHub, create a Jenkins pipeline and do the CI/CD using Jenkins and Argo CD. And at the end, deploy the whole code at AWS EKS. Complete description of this course is covered in a very separate video. The link for that video is also given in the description bar below. And also the link to purchase that course from Udemy is also in the description bar below. So please go and check the description for all these links. How to traverse or loop over a map. So it's easy with list, right? You just put a for loop and you iterate over it. The data that is stored in such data structures is just the simple elements that you can iterate and fetch. But in map, you will not get the element directly. You will not the key and value directly. What you will get is an entry object. So in map, internally entry object is stored. When you try to iterate over map, you will not directly get the elements. What you will get is entry object. Now you have to iterate over entry object to fetch your key and values. So traversing or looping is not that straightforward in map, and hence there are multiple ways to do that. You can do it with for each loop with Java 5, or you can use using iterator, or you can use the entry set with for loop and entry set with iterator. So these are two combinations. The for loop combination with key set and for loop combination with entry set, or iterator of key set and iterator of entry set. We'll see all the four here. So I have a map with an integer which is a key and a string which is a value of companies available out there in the market. I've taken 4 simple examples and added these into the map, and the way to put it in map is .put method, and this is nothing but an entry object. So what you can do is you can use the key set method of map, and key set method returns you a set. With this return type of set, you can fetch each key of the set and print that key. So one will be printed, but with key, how will you get the value? So map.get is the method to get value by giving a key. So this is how you print using the for loop and key set method of a map. This method iterates over all the keys, and with keys corresponding values can be fetched using the get method. So that's the basic way of using for loop and key set method. Next is iterator with the key set method. So again, what you can do is you can fetch a set of keys using the key set method like you were doing here. Similar to this also, you can fetch the set of keys, and then on that set, you can use the iterator. You cannot directly use iterator over a map because map is not a collection, it's a key value pair. You cannot use iterator directly over the map. You can either use it on a key set or an entry set. So on set, we have initiated the iterator, and it has given me an iterator of integers because it is going to iterate over keys. Keys is integer. So while it has next elements, the iterator has next element. Please fetch the next element and print the key and get the value by using the get method of the map. So you can use key set with iterator combination, and using a while loop you can fetch while check whether it has next, and if it has next then please fetch the next. So has next and next method of iterator is used in the while loop to fetch elements. The third way is to use the entry set with for loop. So it's a combination. Now if we had used for and key set, now we will use entry set in for loop. So what we will do, entry set is going to return you a set, but set is not going to be about the direct values but the entry object. So it is going to be a set of entry object, and when you have an entry object with a key and a value, what you can do is entry.get key, entry.get value. You don't have to use the get method by giving the key and fetching the value. No, entry object directly has a key and a value, and hence it is better to use the entry set to iterate over a map, because directly with .entry set you can get a set of entry objects and iterate over each entry object using the for loop and directly get a key and a value directly from the entry object. And the last way, to use entry set in the iterator on that entry set, because iterator you can use in set. With entry set you will get a set only. On that set you can use a iterator. And with iterator, while the entry objects are there, you can check it has next. When it has next, fetch the next element, which is nothing but an entry object, and fetch the key and the value. So 4 simple techniques: key set and for loop, key set and iterator, entry set and for loop, entry set and iterator. Simple. We'll move ahead. What is weak hash map and how is it different from a hash map? Weak hash map is again a hash map with the keys that are of weak reference type. Now weak reference is a Java class. If you can see, WeakReference is a Java class here. And WeakHashMap internally uses WeakReference as a class to store their keys. Let's see the 3 types of references first. We have 3 types of references: strong reference, soft reference, and weak reference. What we are considering here is a weak reference, but to understand this, let's first understand strong and soft references. The strong references is like this: integer a equals to 1. So a is having a value of 1. So any object which has a strong reference pointing to it is not eligible for garbage collection. The reference a is pointing to a value 1, and this is not eligible for garbage collection because the reference has a value right now. Second is a soft reference. An object has a soft reference pointing to it. It won't be garbage collector until JVM absolutely needs the memory. Now I have an integer a equals to 1. I have created a soft reference of a, and now I have pointed a to null. So what happened is a had a strong reference. Now what we have done, we have used a to wrap with a soft reference. Now after making the strong reference a to null, object is eligible for garbage collection, but since it is having a soft reference here, it will be garbage collected only when JVM absolutely needs the memory, else it will not be garbage collected like the strong reference. Now next is the weak reference. The objects are referenced by weak reference. So here we have soft reference. Similarly, we have weak reference here. So integer a equals to 1. We have wrapped with the soft or the weak reference, and we are making it null. So what will happen? With the weak references, the garbage collector is eager to garbage collect it, since it is a weak reference. So garbage collector will not wait, do I need a memory or am I out of memory? It will not wait for that. As soon as your reference is pointed to null, it will be garbage collector for sure. So these are the 3 types of references we have. Now with weak hash map, the keys or the entries are stored with the weak references. What does that mean? As soon as your key is pointing to null, even though your entry object is having reference to key, but your key is pointing to null, entry object will be removed from weak hash map. So an entry will automatically be removed when the key is no longer in use. Which means that if no single reference is pointing to the key is eligible for garbage collection. Even though you have entry object associated with key, still garbage collector will garbage collect the key. So when garbage collection process discards the key, its entry is removed from the map, even though it is associated with the weak hash map. So garbage collector is dominant over the weak hash map. What happens in hash map really? Even if key is not having any reference or it is eligible for garbage collection, it is pointing to null. Still, it knows that it is associated with an entry object, and entry object is associated with hash map. Hence, neither the entry object will be removed nor the key will be garbage collected. Hence, HashMap has a dominance over the garbage collector, saying, I have the key with me, even it doesn't have any reference, it has a reference with my entry object, I will not let you garbage collect it. But with the weak HashMap, it says, okay, since key is not being referenced anymore, nobody will be able to use that key. It is of no use. You can take away my key and I will remove the entry object from my weak HashMap. So references of a weak reference type is used as a key in the weak HashMap. So keys are weak references, which will be garbage collector as soon as there is no reference remaining for the key. So what internally it do is weak HashMap periodically check keys. Whenever you try to get a key from a weak HashMap, it checks. Does it have any reference? If it does not have any reference, then the key is garbage collected by garbage collector and the entry object is removed from the weak HashMap also. Now let's see what all new features are added with 3.0. Are these breaking features? Does it have a backward compatibility? And what changes do we need to do? So the major changes are all around the Java version. You have to migrate from your older versions to Java 17 and later to work with Spring Boot 3.0. So this is a very big and breaking change currently. Next is the Gradle. If you're using Gradle, you have to move to 7.3 or later. Older versions will not work. Similarly, Spring Framework, automatically when you insert this dependency of Spring 3.0.0, automatically internally started using Spring Framework version 6, which is latestly released in 16th November 2022. A very breaking change now is Jakarta EE version is used rather than Java EE version, and rest all upgrades and deprecations are done as required with all these changes. So let's get to each and every one individually. The biggest change in Spring Boot 3 is the decision to use Java 17 as the minimum required version. Requiring a Java 17 as a newer one is a big move. And with this move, Spring becomes the first major framework to recently acquire Java 17 as the latest release, minimum long-term support release. Java 17 is the latest long-term supported version by Java with all new features like records, which is a quick way to create DTOs or POJOs in your application. Instance of changes, some multi-line string changes initially. Whenever you put a multi-line, you have to use a plus sign or concatenate sign to make it multi-line. But now you have text blocks as a new data structure to help you have the concatenated strings without any plus sign or line breaks. So these are all the new features of Java 17. I'm not going to cover this in this video. If you want to know all such new features, what's new, what's deprecated with Java 17, you have to let me know in the comment section. I'll create another video on Java 17 new features. And not just Java 17, Spring Boot 3.0 also works well with Java 17 and above. That is, it is also tried and tested with JDK 19 also. But nothing less than 17 is allowed with Spring Boot 3.0. The next very major change that you can see with Spring Boot 3.0 and a breaking change, which breaks the backward compatibility, is moving from Java EE to Jakarta EE 9. What does that mean? When we move from Java EE to Jakarta EE 9, what you have to do as a developer is you need to make all the changes of Java X packages to Jakarta star packages. At the end, that is why you need to adjust all your imports in your code, otherwise your code will not compile at all. For example, if you have some servlets, some Java X servlet HTTP servlets request, you have to move from Java X to Jakarta. That's the only change you have to do. The rest functionality remains the complete same. And this means that this is a breaking change. It breaks the backward compatibility and is the source of most of the issues in the migration process. So if you think it is easy to migrate from Spring 2.0 to 3.0, it is not that easy, trust me on that. Firstly, you have many steps that you have to follow for the migration purpose. Because it is a breaking change, it can break all your source code. It might take some time to migrate from the legacy Spring Boot 2 to Spring Boot 3 now. Now it will use all the Jakarta package namespace instead of Java X, and mostly it's with when you use validations, when you use JPA, when you use servlet, that is when you face this issue. Now what is Jakarta? What is this fuss about this Jakarta and why we have moved from Java EE to Jakarta? So you might have heard about these four in your daily life. Java EE, Java 2 EE, J2 EE, and now Jakarta EE. You must be tensed and what are all these four all about? What is the difference between all these four? So trust me on this, all these are just different names for the same thing. That is enterprise specifications. that actually internally extends just Java Standard Edition. So this is just the Enterprise Edition, which is extending the Standard Edition. Nothing much. It's just that when the first version of Java was released, Java 1, everything was a part of JDK. With Java 2, which was released in 1999, these extensions were broken down as a standalone standard libraries and binaries, and then comes J2EE. This was there until 2006. In 2006, Java 5 was released, and this J2EE was renamed to Simple Java EE or Java Platform Enterprise Edition. Nothing has changed, it's just a rename. Nothing internally has changed for this. That name would stick all around till September 2017 when something major has happened. In 2017 September, what Oracle has decided. So Oracle was the one having all the rights and responsibilities for Java. Now Oracle has decided to give away the Java EE or the Enterprise Edition of Java to Eclipse Foundation. Though Java is still owned by Oracle, but the rights for Enterprise Edition Java is given to Eclipse Foundation. Now, Eclipse Foundation has to legally rename this Java EE or J2EE or E, all of these, to Jakarta. Reason being, Oracle has all the rights to Java brand. It cannot use Java brand, because every rights for this Java is with Oracle. Now, having Eclipse as the new owner for Enterprise Edition, all these Enterprise Edition packages has to be renamed to some new name and have the right over it. So the community for Eclipse Foundation has voted and picked up the Jakarta EE, which is nothing but a rename of Java EE and nothing new, just the name change. So technically, being a Java developer, what you have to do is just change the package name from Java X to Jakarta Star. Nothing else you have to do apart from that. What else is new? So there are many more features that was added to Spring Boot 3.0.0. That is a native support for declarative HTTP client interface using @HTTP exchange. So some changes are done to HTTP client. Also, there is a very big change done with the Graal VM native image support. Now, this is a very new way to deploy and run Java applications. We all know that J is an interpreted language and hence their performance is lacking because of the interpreted language behavior. Now, Graal VM came to increase the performance of JDK. So, only way to speed up the execution of application in Java and other languages, what it does is it uses the hotspot with just-in-time compiler and ahead-of-time compilation. So, this is nothing but a virtual machine. Now, this virtual machine native images are standalone executables generated by processing a compiled Java application ahead of time, and hence it increases the performance. So, this is just a way to increase performance of Java virtual machine using Graal VM. So, these are the well suited for applications that are deployed using the container images. What else is new in 3.0? You have better observability with micrometer and micrometer tracing. Now, what is micrometer tracing, and what is observability? So, looking first at observability, it is the ability to observe the internal state of your running application from sitting outside of that system. So, you deploy your application to prod, but you need to observe it sitting at your place, outside that server, outside that prod server. How do you trace any problem? How is the system working for the customers in the prod? So, the three things that is required for good observability.
So, what is Elasticsearch? Elasticsearch is a NoSQL database. Now, you will ask me, we already have many kinds of database out there. We have relational databases. We also have Cosmos DB for Azure. We also have MongoDB, which is also NoSQL DB. Why now one more database, which is a NoSQL database, that is Elasticsearch? So, the reason being, in a normal databases, the search operation is really slow compared to the databases which are created only for the searching purpose. So, Elasticsearch is an open source search engine based on Apache Lucene, which uses the inverted text data structure to store its data, and it is built with the RESTful APIs because it is created in Java language. Too much of theory? So, basic things. First of all, Elasticsearch is needed in this IT world because it is a searched engine. So basically, it includes all those features which helps you to faster retrieval of your data and also to store your logs.
So the basic utilization of Elasticsearch in our life is to store the logs and to search the backend data with a terrific speed and flexibility. Hence, it is called as a search engine. It is open source, written in Java, so you and your organization don't have to pay a penny for this. It is based on a data structure that is inverted text data, which is used for the full text search. That is, even if you write A, all the data with A in it will be, who are indexed, will be searched with it. And you can query it using the RESTful APIs. It mainly consists of three things. The main three things which all of the databases have. It is the index, which is database, the documents, which are the rows similar to the relational database, and fields, which are the columns in the relational database. Basically, in an Elasticsearch, like in a database, what main operations you do? You write and you read. You write in the database when you get some data, and you read when you need some data. Similar to that, in Elasticsearch also, you write to the Elasticsearch as soon as your main database is changed, or when you have some logs created from your application. Secondly, you read it when you need to fetch logs from your servers. And secondly, you read when you need some terrific speedy search in the backend database. So these are the two operations you always use Elasticsearch. What is Kafka? Apache Kafka is a publish subscribe fault tolerant messaging system. It is fast and scalable and distributed by design. In the previous slides, we have seen what is point-to-point and what is publish-subscribe models in messaging systems. So Kafka is a publish-subscribe model, while ActiveMQs and RabbitMQs were point-to-point messaging systems. It was initially thought of as a message queue. It was initially created by LinkedIn in 2011 as an open-sourced messaging communication system with multiple publishers, multiple subscribers. But later on, it was found that Kafka is much more to just a messaging system. So in the later years, Apache took over it from the LinkedIn, and the community evolved Kafka to provide multiple capabilities. The very first capability remains the same, that it is publish-subscribe model, just like a messaging queue in a messaging system. So it is by default there created by LinkedIn. Later on, it was modified to have the storage systems also, so that messages can be consumed asynchronously. Kafka is going to write a data to a disk structure. So there is some storage system available where the data is going to be written and is going to be replicated in multiple brokers and multiple disk areas to be fault tolerant. The third important thing is that a very important modification done to the capability of Kafka is that it was enabled for stream processing with Kafka Stream APIs. So multiple APIs were introduced later on in Kafka to be able to do stream processing, which enables complex aggregation and joins of input streams into a particular output stream of processed data. Too much of theory, we will see how Kafka is capable enough to do all those things when we are going to see the architecture of Kafka. Just by going and implementing a project with Kafka is not enough. Though it seems very easy to just go and implement Kafka and say, okay, I know everything. But when you go to an interview, they'll ask you multiple things. Why it is fault tolerant? Why did you go to Kafka? Why not ActiveMQs, RabbitMQs? How Kafka is different from ActiveMQs, RabbitMQs? And what are the pros and cons you have found while implementing Kafka and moving from Apache MQ and RabbitMQ to Kafka? What good and what bad have you seen in your journey? So to implement and answer all those questions in an interview, you should know the basics of Kafka first. The traditional messaging models are queues and publish-subscribe models. So in queue like ActiveMQ and RabbitMQ, each record goes to only one and only one consumer. So this was producer and this was a consumer. Whatever the producer produces is going to be consumed by exactly one consumer. And as soon as consumer consumes it, the message is deleted from the broker. While in the case of publish subscriber, all the data is written to some disk storage, basically a storage area. And subscribers or the consumers pulls that data from that particular hard disk but does not remove it. Why? Because that particular message is not just meant for consumer one, but it is meant for multiple consumers or subscribers who have subscribed to that topic. So the subscriber does not delete that data while reading it, while the consumer deletes the data as soon as it reads it. So that's the very big difference between ActiveMQs and Kafkas.
What is Liskov substitution principle? Now this is very difficult part, but it will be easy if you go ahead with me. Okay, I'll try to make it as easy as possible, but I'm seriously telling it's a bit complex one. It's the complex one out of all the 5. Now, Liskov substitution principle says that the software should not alter the desirable result when replaced with the parent type with any of the subtypes. That is, derived type must be completely substitutable with the base type. So what does this mean, substitutable with the base type? It says that if in case you are giving an object of parent, now if you are using a proper way of implementing inheritance and you are using proper is a relationship, then your derived class must be completely able to substitute your base class. Very difficult to understand. Now I understand with an example. Now suppose in this, okay, I'll have one more method. Void use me to print your data. Simple. Now this method is taking an employee E, and with employee E it is calling print me. Simple, something which we have done already. And now what we are going to do is, I'm going to create an object of client itself, because it's a static method. I cannot call non-static method. So right now I'm creating a new object of it. And with this object, what I'm going to do is call myself client.use me to print your data. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to send my employee object. Okay. Now this method is capable to take an employee instance. So this employee instance is nothing but an instance of employee itself. So if I try to run it, it will be happy and it will print me 1, code as a answer. Now this principle says that the derived type, what is my derived type? Trained employee, must be completely substitutable for their base type. So it should completely happily substitute my base type, and still my functionality should not break. So does it break? Let me run it. It's still the same. It's the same result that we have got from the previous one. So it makes sure that you are implementing is a relationship in a proper way. So this makes sure. So with this code, I have made sure that my trained employee is also an employee. So this is what Liskov principle says. It's easy, it's just difficult in terms of words. It says that derived types must be substitutable for their base type. It means that the classes that you develop by extending our class should be able to fit in application without failure. Okay, again difficult. Okay, it says that if you are extending a class, so yes, I am extending a trained class, it should be completely fit in the application without failure. So yes, it is fitting in my method without any failure, and still the response remains the same. Now this requires the objects of subclass to behave in same way as the object of superclass. So does my trained employee behave same as employee? Yes, they do. This is mostly seen in places we do run type identification and class access to appropriate reference type. Want more such questions to be covered for experienced Java developers? Just let us know in the comment section. We will create more such tricky interview questions for you.